Okay, welcome to Health Talk here on AM 1270 and 96.5 FM KXBX. Beautiful day today. Bill Kearney of Northwick Medical Pharmacies, and can we say heat wave in April?
Well, I think we can. I went in to see my surgeon this morning, and so rather than drop my pants, I put on shorts and, to check my femur, and then I stopped by the pharmacy, and I'm sitting there, and people are saying, does a head pharmacist owner allowed to wear shorts? And I said, well, usually I bring a pair of long pants, and I said it was going to be almost 90 degrees, so I thought I'd try to slip by with shorts. So
I didn't notice them until I went out and came back in and see the legs sitting there.
So anyway, it is
quite handsome legs, by the way.
Well, thank you. Just stay on that side of the counter. We face each other here in the studio, and I watch Paul eat his sunflower seeds.
No. Look.
What is it?
We're
carrots. My goodness.
Mm-hmm.
Why? You're getting healthy.
I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do carrots now. So.
Well, you can buy those. You can buy a basketball full of them or a bushel barrel full of them, and last for a week.
Pretty cheap,
So
So if you hear me crunching,
well,
that's what it is. Well, carrots.
That'll be better than a snore. So as long as I can hear you chewing, I'll be. But we're going to talk about a lot to do with healthcare. If you missed last week, we had a lot of things. I need to remind you on KXBX.com. We have our radio show in pods that you can click on the Healthy Kids Free Vitamin Program, and there will be a date there on any shows that you missed, hopefully, and you'll be able to listen to them and pick them up. And so if you last week we talked about a lot of different things that were happening, and it would be a good one to go back and listen to. And on behalf of KXBX.com, they have improved our website and improved our visual ability on the internet, and you'll be able to see a delightful picture of me with my headphones on and Paul laughing on the other side with the camera, and enroll in this Healthy Kids Vitamin Program, which is a free vitamin program that we have for Good Neighbor Pharmacy Healthy Kids that we offer our patients that are age 2 to 12 a free 30-day supply of Good Neighbor Pharmacy Children's Chewable Vitamins. Every month, we have you apply for the enrollee into the program, and we allow each one of your children to get a free bottle of vitamins every month. We have a punch card that we fill out, and we keep a record of it, and all you have to do is fill out the program and pick up your free vitamins for your kids from age 2 to 12. So more than happy to accommodate you. I don't know of any place else that you can get free vitamins for your kids, and it's at absolutely no cost to you. And we'd like to keep your kids healthy, so you can come into the pharmacy, fill out a vitamin program application. You don't have to be approved for it. We just have to have it on file. They will give you a punch card to have you punch to accommodate your kids, one for each one of your children, and get free vitamins every month for a year. So at both of our pharmacies, you can do this. If you have trouble acquiring vitamins at one place because you get them the other place, let us know. We'll check with both pharmacies and make sure that we're not duplicating, and get you your own vitamins for your own children. So and we'll keep a file on you so we can pick that up every month and mark off the month that you get it. So thanks to KXBX and KXBX.com. That information is on the website too, and not all of our, but probably the last few months of our Health Talk program are on there too, so you can listen to that also. So we're going to talk about quite a few things. We're going to talk about what really happens when you mix medications together. We're going to talk about spring allergies, which are unbelievable right now. The best drugs to treat those allergies, how to nip them in the butt, and a big change that that had been reported in autism. It isn't significant, as you have heard. The CDC reports no change in the prevalence, although you hear more and more about autism than you ever have. If you have dry mouth, what you can do about it, and about diabetes being quadrupled. The World Health Organization says since 1980 it's 4 times as prevalent as it was. The first thing that we want to talk about, other than the Healthy Kids Free Vitamin Program, is what happens when you mix medications. And a patient of mine came in, and one of his family members was taking about 15 different medicines and was having some struggles with the different disease states and the interactions of medications, and wanted me to look at them. And I ran all those medications, and I tried to evaluate each one of them, and I ran it through a computer system, and what were the side effects of each one of those medications, and then what were the side effects with each medication against each other. And what happens many times is we have a drug, and we do a lot of research before we bring that drug to market, finding out what are the side effects if a person takes that medication. And if we do anything about the combination of drugs, we do it maybe on 1 or 2 different drugs. Well, this physician, Russ Altman, is from Stanford, and he has a 14-minute presentation on the internet that says a story, and he's talking to other physicians about what happens when you mix medications. In this individual's situation, I had 12 to 15 different medications, and I ended up with 10 pages of interactions between those medications. And some of those medications were trying to achieve a special point, and because they were taking another medication, it blocked the response of that medication. And this doctor started out with just 2 medications, and to see what the evidence would be. And the 2 drugs were paroxetine, which is Paxil, which is an antidepressant, and Pravastatin, which is Pravachol, which is a statin, which is to lower high cholesterol. And was trying to see if he could find out if there was any interaction between the 2 medications. And so they typed in the 2 medications, and they were talking about glucose, and they were looking at a database in Stanford and said there are millions of Americans that take those 2 drugs. In fact, they learned that there were 15 million Americans on paroxetine at the time, which is the Paxil, the antidepressant, and 15 million on Pravastatin, and 1 million were on both of those medications. So that 1 million people who were having some problems with glucose, if this did not establish in the FDA database, it would hold up. So what's happened now is they found out there was a problem with them. There are thousands and thousands of people in Stanford medical records that take both of these, but they needed special patients. So they took patients who were on one of them and had a glucose measurement, and then they got a second one, and then another glucose measurement, all within a reasonable period of time, and something like 2 months. And when they did that, they found 10 patients. However, 8 of the 10 had a bump in their glucose when they got the second P, which was they were either on paroxetine or Pravastatin, and then they added the other one, and their glucose went up even more. So either one could be the first or the second one. Glucose went up 20 milligrams per deciliter. And just as a reminder, you walk around normally, if you're not a diabetic, with a glucose of around 90. And if it gets up to 120 or 125, your doctor starts thinking about a potential diagnosis of diabetes. So a 20 milligram bump is pretty significant. So then they put in side effects of what they had, and they just put in 2 different side effects when they left out diabetes because diabetics had already messed up their glucose. They looked at the glucose of diabetes going up to 60 milligrams, not just 20, and that was a very big deal. And they published that in a paper, and so the paper was accepted on the information, and that was just 2 medications, and they put in side effects of urination or fatigue or loss of appetite, peeing a lot, because they had to put in words that were put in by the patients if they were inquiring about the side effects of medications, and they don't normally put in anything that's a pharmaceutical term or a medical term. They put in what they're expecting, or experiencing. So if you put in urinating a lot, that might not come up, but if you put in peeing a lot, that was significant. So as it turns out, that about 5 to 1% of all searches on the internet involve one of those words, so that their baseline, if people type in paroxetine or Paxil, those are synonyms, and one of those words, the rate goes up to about 2%. And if both those drugs are typed in, then it goes up to about 10%. So a 3 to 4-fold increases in those searches with those 2 drugs, and that's just 2 drugs. So what do you take away from this? And that is, in the one that I'm currently working on, there is more than one physician involved. They're specialists. And lots of times, although this individual is experiencing an uncontrollable increase in glucose, there are certain days when this individual becomes hypoglycemic and under the sugar amount that they should have. So, and you wonder why I tell this story. And first of all, we now have a promise of big data and medium-sized data to help us understand the drug interactions, and really, fundamentally, drug actions, how they work. This will here's a prime example: Lipitor, which is a statin, and they will tell you do not take it with grapefruit juice. And I'm asked many times why I can't take a medication. Nifedipine's another one. Viagra's another one. Why can't I take grapefruit juice with this medication? Well, the reason in that medication, and it isn't every statin, but most all of them, if you put grapefruit juice, if you just take it once a day, and you don't take it concurrently with the medication that you're taking, that drug can accumulate to 5 times the strength it is in the system, because rather than being metabolized quickly and sent into the bloodstream and the urine, it becomes blocked, and the effect continues on and builds up because it can't be excreted. And so that's why they tell you statins, although we talk about them, and we just talked about them last week, of being something that even more people should be taking, because we can lower the risks of cardiovascular disease substantially, even people that are marginal. And so this has created a new ecosystem for understanding how drugs work and optimize their use. So when I'm talking about something simple like grapefruit juice and Lipitor, we're talking about maybe 30 drugs on the market right now for diabetes. We're talking about a substantial amount of drugs that are on the market for antidepressants. We're talking about beta blockers that are substantial for high blood pressure in huge amounts. You can take all these together or interacting with each other and find out that perhaps you're doing more harm than good by taking all these medications. They found those 2 drugs, and it was a little bit of a sad story that the 2 drugs actually caused problems. They increased glucose. They could throw somebody into diabetes who would otherwise not be in diabetes. And so you'd want to use the 2 drugs very carefully together, but maybe not together, maybe different choices when you're prescribing. But there was another possibility. They could have found 2 drugs or 3 drugs that were interacting in a beneficial way, and you could have found out they were more beneficial, and perhaps they were working too efficiently, And they could have found new effects of drugs that neither one of them had alone, but together they had a beneficial effect, causing a side effect that could be a new and novel treatment for some other disease. And we're finding that all the time. If we think about drug treatment today, all the major breakthroughs for HIV or tuberculosis or for depression or diabetes, it's always a cocktail of drugs. And so the upside here is the subject for a different talk on a different day is how can we use this same data to find good effects of drugs in combination that will provide us new treatments under new insights. And that's how pharmacy is changing today. That's how medicine is changing today. We talked last week about physicians not being taught to treat wellness. They're taught to treat sickness. And if you put more of that responsibility on the physician and on the pharmacy to interact with the physician on what these drugs do. When I was in Korea during the Vietnam War, I was in a surgical hospital, a MASH unit on the DMZ. And it was a tiny hospital because we were on the DMZ, and over half the time we were in a tent under fire from the North Koreans, even though the war was over. And I would make rounds with the physician every morning as the pharmacist. Not a big hospital, maybe 10, 15 patients. And they would tell me the diagnosis, and then they would ask me what I had on the formula in this little mini ambulatory hospital. What would I suggest as a treatment for that disease? So we actually did the prescribing. I said we, there was only one, and I was there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, whether it was up in the mountains or if it was down in the structure. But over half the time it was in the mountains in a tent. And we were the first line of medical treatment when somebody got injured. And but there were all kinds of diseases there. There was tuberculosis. There was all kinds of viruses that we don't have here. The prescription for tuberculosis was 720 tablets. We were right next to North Korea, so many times that medication, all those bottles for a month's supply, would go across to the communists in North Korea, and somebody would sell it to them. So after we thought we were treating them and they would come back into the hospital and they weren't any better, we would increase the dosage only to find out that they weren't really taking the medication to start with. Tuberculosis in North Korea and South Korea is very prevalent. South Korea has medical services and treats them immediately. North Korea has very few, and it's really difficult to treat the people over there because they can't cross the DMZ still. So that war ceased existence in 1953, but we never signed a treaty, so it still goes on today. Paul, have you been out looking at the pollen in the area here in the last few days? I mean,
I've seen it, yes.
It's, I cleaned my car off on Sunday because it was just full of yellow pollen.
Yeah.
And by the end of the day, it was full again. The barbecues and everything outside has got this yellow, filmy pollen all over it. And this wind, which was supposed to be really bad yesterday, there was actually a health warning out, but it wasn't bad up here compared to the Bay Area. But we do have allergies, and we have a way to treat them, and a lot more ways to treat them now than we had in the past. And we need to talk a little bit about that.
Bill, looks like you have a call coming in.
Okay.
Good morning. You're on Health Talk.
Good morning. Hi.
So during pollen season, I'm out in the yard or gardening. Should I put a mask on my face?
Well, it would not hurt. I don't know if you have a potential to be allergic for this, as well as your mouth, your eyes. Right now, my eyes get swollen shut almost outside because I'm allergic to the pollen. But that would keep you from breathing it in, and also when you go to bed at night, it's in your hair, and it gets all over your pillow. and then you inhale that pollen during the night when you're sleeping. So anything will help. I don't wear a mask outside, but anything will keep it. You'll see a lot of that in other countries. People will do that a lot because they've been brought up that way. So it'll certainly help you. It won't keep you from being completely exposed, but if you're not breathing it in, it's not going to affect your lungs or your breathing like it would be otherwise. So it's not a bad idea.
Bill, how much do purifiers cost for the house for like children and stuff?
I don't know. Anywhere from $60 or $70 clear up to $1,000, depending on the quality. But any of those things will help. Of course, keeping your window shut during the time when this pollen is the greatest is always very advisable also. But you can't keep it out completely. And of course, with the warm weather, if you don't have air conditioning, you certainly don't want to shut the house completely up. But it's when the wind's blowing like it has been, and that pollen is all over the place, and you can see it laying on the ground, it's coming in your house.
I did on my automobile this morning. It's everywhere.
Yes. So a mask will help. Even goggles will help. But if it bothers your eyes, if it doesn't bother your eyes, I wouldn't worry about that. But after you get inside, to have it in your hair and put it on your pillow, and there just doesn't seem to be any end to where you can get exposed from the allergens. As right now, it's mostly trees.
I was going to ask, is that bronchitis still going around down in Sacramento at the colleges and stuff?
It's still going around, and it's going around here too. And people are getting really tired of it because it comes back, it reinfects. So. It's just the time of year, I think, and now we're getting between spring and summer, and people's immune systems aren't ready to handle it. It's not the flu; it's bronchitis. It affects your lungs. So, and then people are getting pneumonia.
They got it in school in like the third grade. I remember. But the thing is, if you've had it before, is your immune system built up a little bit better than the very first time?
Yeah, once you've been exposed to it, you develop a tolerance. Maybe not enough to keep from getting it, but not to get it as badly as you had the first time. And gradually, it depends on if it's viral or bacterial. If it's bacterial, you develop a resistance. If it's viral, you probably don't. So it's just one of those things that you have to deal with. It's uncomfortable, and it doesn't usually last for a long time. But when it keeps coming back, and there's not a lot of difference between the time you had it the last time and the time you get it, your immune system doesn't have time to recover, and that's why you're susceptible.
Now, is that the whooping cough is the same as bronchitis? Or,
no.
Or is the whooping cough just where it's down deeper in the lungs?
Yeah, whooping cough is much different. And in order to avoid getting whooping cough, you need to get a shot of Tdap. We get that at one point in our life, but it doesn't give you immunity for the rest of your life. And so, especially if you're going to be around little kids or something like that, because they don't have immunity. So if you get, and a mother, every time she gets pregnant, she has to get a pertussis shot to provide immunity for her. But when a baby, when there's an infant and you're around, you're exposed to pertussis, and even though it may not affect you, you can be a carrier to an infant. So
I lucked out. My youngest had it, and it took like 3 or 4 nights, just up all night with her by a cool window and pounding her back a little bit and then letting up, and it was horrible.
Yeah.
She had to take a whole bottle of medicine. She had to get it down like within 4 hours.
Right.
I kept like blowing on her nose a little bit and then putting it in her mouth, and she's kind of like, Mommy.
Yeah.
I try to hold it in her so she'd swallow it.
Yeah.
But I had to do it a little bit at a time, and then I just stopped breathing on her, blowing in her nose, and I was just like, take it now, okay? Just take it. And she probably just took it,
Yeah, you're the bad person to the child at the time, but, it's better for her, so.
Yeah, it was a horrible event, but she's going to be 18 this month, so that was a long time ago.
Yeah, you made it. All right.
Anyway, thank you for your answers and answer my questions, and you guys have a great day. And
you too.
Paul, you're the best guy on the radio, so remember that.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
Bye.
Paul is so humble. Yeah.
Hey,
You got to take it where you can get it.
Where
you know?
I get it. I don't get that kind of praise at home, that's for sure.
None of us do, you know. Well, if you have the seasonal allergies and it's working against you, you need to do everything you can to treat it. We have lots of ways to treat it now that we didn't have before. We have antihistamines now that are non-sedating, like the loratadine and ones that are antihistamines, and you can and Claritin. You can also combine those with decongestants if you need to. We have sprays that help. We've talked about Afrin before, or metazoline, oxymetazoline. Those drugs will have a tendency to rebound on you if you use them more than 3 days. So you need to get something like a steroid spray. Those allergies are starting. They already started, about a month ago, and they still are having an effect. They just change from tree allergies to grass allergies to blossoms and those kind of things, and so they go from one to the other, and if you're particularly sensitive, you need to treat them. The new steroid sprays that are out, like Nasacort, and there's a couple of more that are over the counter now that used to be prescriptions. They work not they're not an emergency type of spray because it takes about 72 hours to get them in your system, so they're not a rescue inhaler. But you use it, depends on, we used to tell you couldn't use them PRN. You couldn't use them as you needed them. You had to build it up into your system. And when you do that, they do act. You just can't use them more than once or twice a day. But when you get them in your system, then you can use that as a rescue inhaler. But they suggest you can use it on an as-needed basis now, which I just want you to be aware that it doesn't act as quickly, on an as-needed basis. So you need to take a look at antihistamines as a preventative before you actually get into the actual seasonal allergies. Start taking them a couple of days ahead of time, and then take them routinely. If it's loratadine and those kind of non-sedating antihistamines, you can take one a day, and it's non-sedating and it works for you. And it is, if it's really drastic for you, then we suggest people take something like Benadryl or chlorotrimeton. Those are the old kinds of antihistamines. They have a sedating effect, make you sleepy, and sometimes with kids, it makes them hyperactive. Now, Claritin or loratadine or these non-sedating antihistamines actually have chewable forms for kids and liquids for kids, and they aren't sedating. They're non-drowsy. So, but if you're an adult and you need something that the loratadine or the Claritin isn't working for you, then or Zyrtec, then take a chlorotrimeton or a Benadryl, and it's going to cause you to have a little bit of a dry mouth, may cause you to be a little drowsy, but it's going to be a little more effective on the allergies if the loratadine or Claritin or Zyrtec isn't working for you. So this is just, and where we live is a great source of different allergens, so we need to be careful. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about how good cholesterol may not always protect against heart disease. As our aging population continues to increase, we as healthcare providers and also family members have an added responsibility to take care of them. Hi, my name is Bill Kearney, pharmacist and owner of Northlake Medical Pharmacies in Lakeport. Our senior population brings us new issues as they continue to age. Our bodies change as we age, and they need a pharmacy that cares about their care. I had a lady come into our pharmacy the other day and ask if we were still a locally owned pharmacy. She was tired of the lack of compassion at the big chain pharmacy she was dealing with. When you become our customer, you will see our goal is to get to know our customer. We believe personalized attention combined with competitive prices are what people are looking for. So when you come into our pharmacies and our employees call you by name, don't be surprised, but feel how important you are to us. That's why our family-owned pharmacy has continued to exist the past 36 years in Lakeport. Northlake Medical Pharmacies with 2 locations to serve you, on Hill Road East across from Sutter Lakeside Hospital and outside the Bruno Shop Smart in Lakeport.
In the past, when a musician or band recorded a song that was worth owning, people would buy it. And that inspired artists to create more music. It was a rewarding time for both artist and listener. Today, many music lovers refuse to pay anything to own a new song. Why pay for music when it can be downloaded illegally for free? When you download music illegally, you're stealing, and it's not a victimless crime. You're denying payment for work that rightfully belongs to the artist. So please, don't download music, movies, or software illegally. Do what's right. Pay for them. Get them legally and support aspiring artists who are busy creating your next favorite song.
Illegal downloads hurt, but you have the power to stop them. To learn more, go to www.ncpc.org/getreal. That's ncpc.org/getreal. Brought to you by the National Crime Prevention Council and the Bureau of Justice Assistance, U.S. Department of Justice.
Does peace really have a chance within our lifetime? At Rotary, we believe it does. We've created programs at universities around the world dedicated solely to teaching peace to a new generation. There's a new symbol for peace. Rotary.
Out on the golf course, there are the obvious hazards. There's the pond, the bunker, the rough, the even rougher.
Yeah, put me down for an 8.
The giant maples. The row of houses out of bounds on the right. The angry flock of geese who've surrounded your ball. Even the occasional groundskeeper you had no clue was there. But if you think you found every possible hazard out there, think again. The hazard you missed could actually be a killer. It's the spot on your skin, the one that could be skin cancer. Fact is, if you're a man over 50, you're in a group most likely to develop skin cancer, including melanoma, the kind that kills 1 person every hour. 1 in 5 Americans is likely to develop a form of skin cancer during their lifetime. That's why your best shot is to check for a spot. It's easy. Follow through and check your skin. It could be the save of a lifetime. Go to spotskincancer.org to find out how. A message from the American Academy of Dermatology.
Alrighty, and we're back.
All right, 263-5252. If you have any questions about anything we're talking about here, and I slipped one in on us that I didn't mention at the beginning of the show. Excuse me, and that was about good cholesterol may not always protect against heart disease. And we always talk about LDL, which is the bad cholesterol, and we seldom talk about HDL, which is the good cholesterol. And inflammation of the artery walls raises the risk of a heart attack or stroke because it increases the chance of plaque on the artery walls rupturing. If that happens, it can lead to the formation of blood clots and blockage in the blood flow. Low-density protein, which is the bad cholesterol, is found in high levels in about 1/3 of the American adults, according to the CDC. On the other hand, the high levels of high-density lipoproteins or cholesterol are thought to provide anti-inflammatory protection in the artery. Now, we've also talked about statins acting as an anti-inflammatory in arterial walls, and many people don't realize that their cholesterol is too high because there really aren't any symptoms, and individuals, they say, can increase their HDL levels through dietary measures such as consuming foods rich in omega-3s. But I have not been effective in doing that. I have great total cholesterol. I have great LDL. My HDL is low. It's in the 30s, and they expect it to be up into the 60s. So They took participants who had an average age of 63, 66 were male, and 65% were female that had, or 66 were male and 65 had coronary artery disease. They had a higher risk of heart attack or stroke with the high levels of this anti-inflammatory marker. So the researchers have established an association that calls for further research, and whether or not it's defined as C-reactive protein, which they called CRP, which is the inflammatory marker, or not, we don't know. And the whole, I probably shouldn't have brought this thing up because it has little significance on those of us who have HDL as a problem. Just remember your total cholesterol level, and your internist or your primary care physician may differ on this, but your total cholesterol level should be less than 200. Your LDL level should be less than 100, and your HDL level should be 60 or higher. Now, my total cholesterol level is 140. My LDL is down in the 90s, and my HDL is in the 35 or 40 range. I've never been able to raise that HDL level. They said you can do it with niacin, you can do it with diet, with eating a lot of omega-3s. I've never been able to do that. So just be aware that if you have a problem with your HDL being too low, there really isn't a medication on the market that will raise that. And they actually tell you a high, this article said a high HDL level isn't enough to lower your cardiovascular disease risk. So another one of those useless things of information that I throw out there, and I tell you not to take it to heart, but it's just being signed in on the press from because a new study was done. As most of our listeners know, I have a grandson that has autism, and 1 in 68 children have autism, according to the latest report from the CDC. And their new data shows no change in prevalence from 2014 through 2015. And it might be too soon to tell if autism prevalence in the United States is starting to stabilize, just because the number hasn't changed. But the impact is great. And while it's a hint there may be a slowing of the growth and identification of people with autism, it doesn't confirm that we are seeing the leveling out of that. So what it confirms is that autism is a lot more common condition than we ever thought it was for many years, and we need to address the numbers. This was National Autism Week last week, and of course, everybody that has autistic children or autistic grandchildren were very much aware of that. And I was just talking to somebody the other day. They have a child that hasn't spoken yet at 2 years old, and I asked them if they had thought about autism, and which isn't chronic. Some kids don't speak till 3 or 4 years old. But almost 90% of the children have an indication of development concerned by the age of 3, and less than half of them are getting an evaluation. And if you go to a Center for Autism, and I know there's one at UC Davis and Sacramento, there is a gap in services that we need to bridge, and we can reliably diagnose autism by age 2. Our goal is to diagnose earlier and get better service to children earlier. People are very reluctant when they have a child to even want to accept the fact that their child may be autistic. And you think of 1 in 68, and you just go to an event and you see how many kids are there, and you think 1 out of 68 of those kids is autistic. That's a lot. The number really hasn't improved of people getting diagnostics earlier. They don't improve because they're trying to avoid the awareness of the fact that they might have an autistic child. The earlier that we can identify children and have them diagnosed and get them into intervention, the better the prognosis is. So the lack of early identification points to a capacity crisis. There are not enough quality providers out there to provide the therapy services that are needed. A huge thing we need to do at the early age is cross that lifespan of people with autism and identify and support the individuals with it. When my grandchild was diagnosed with autism, he wasn't speaking. He was making sounds, but he wasn't speaking. And socially, he was doing pretty well, but we took him, or his parents took him, my son and my daughter-in-law took him to Davis, and they were able to do a brain scan and see exactly where he had the characteristics of autism, and had his little brother also be scanned and look at both of their brains. They both are extremely intelligent. They both have a very high IQ. And probably the more intelligent of the two is the autistic child. He's speaking, he's going to school, he's going to a regular school now, and getting along well. Has some social problems at times, but it's a difficult disease to deal with, and it's one that takes constant maintenance for a parent at that time in order to make sure they can do everything they can to help them out and gear them the right way. Many times it's diet that's causing them to get worse. They crave carbohydrates many times, and of course the best thing is fast foods, and you go to get chicken nuggets or something like that. That maybe is the only thing they'll eat, and that also is what makes the autism even worse. So we find ourselves going into some of these disease states not really knowing. Our society has not geared up to treating autism or curing autism. It's gone to giving them a amphetamine-like drug for ADHD to get their attention to focus on doing well in school.
Crazy, Bill?
Yeah.
Turn my mic on here. My son has been being evaluated at school because he has some, they call them social issues or social deficiencies, I guess. He has a hard time concentrating is basically what it is. And his older brother, Lance, was diagnosed with ADHD and was given medication beginning right around junior high. And that seemed to help him. His grades increased, and he graduated high school, but he hasn't taken the medicine since because he hated the way it made him feel. But it did help him in school. Well, Matthew's only 7. Here again, they're trying to find some sort of a solution for him. And one of the ladies that was in this meeting